Hello, and welcome to Liberal Arts, a podcast discussing the political, economic, and social controversies in America. I'm Tyler, and I'm here with my friends, Brian and Justin. Given the fact that we are all current students at a liberal arts university, it only seems fitting that in our first episode we talk about the significance and shortcomings of a liberal arts education. Traditionally, liberal arts schools across the nation are known for their small class sizes and the considerable amount of studying spent outside of the students' declared majors. Over the years, many things have been said regarding the effectiveness of a liberal arts education, and we will be highlighting most of these points throughout our discussion. Without further ado, let's get into it.
I think the number one thing that liberal arts education really highlights is its small size, at least to compare it to my previous educational experiences before coming into this college. First of all, my public high school was close to double the size of my current college institution. Class sizes definitely reflected that. We used to have 30 to 40 kids per class back in high school. Here, we're talking sometimes 5 to anywhere ranging to 20, but if that. And I think that really comes with a lot of things. One, you're going to get that personal care that liberal arts universities really like to flaunt from its faculty because there's no other way of getting around it. You're going to have small class sizes where you're sitting at a round table rather than a lecture hall. Professors know your name one by one, your interests, where you're from. I have professors that know my family members' names and know what I've been up to, what I'm interested in. And I think that also leads to you taking courses that you're actually interested in, not necessarily your major or your career field, but you're going to be having to have a buy-in in the class and really participate and engage with your classmates as well as your faculty member. And I think if you're sitting in a class that you're not interested in, and on top of that you're going to have to focus and interact with others, you're really not going to want to. And I think it really leads to a more, not only productive, but a invested in classroom experience that you won't really get in a state school level, public school level, big school level college experience. And I think overall it's more of a positive than a negative, and it translates to your academic college experience, which I think is or should be the main focus of your college career.
Going off that, at least for me, I think class sizes are important, but I think that is not what makes liberal arts. I mean, like, you could honestly get a big professional school, like an engineering school, even though if it's big or public, they could still have small class sizes, and they could have all the benefits you just mentioned. But my thing about liberal arts is like its focus on reading and writing. I think, at least for me, I think that's one of the most important life skills you'll ever have. I mean, the benefits of going to big schools, like, especially if you're a STEM major, you have research opportunities. You definitely have more research. You definitely have better research opportunities there, and you're more likely to have opportunities that lead to a better internship. But I think because of that, we focus less on being able to think critically, being able to read, being able to write. And at least for me, I think that's the biggest significance of a liberal arts education.
Yeah, regarding the research opportunity, I think it is definitely true that at bigger schools you're going to have more research opportunity. You know, they have bigger programs where they have more equipment that you can use and stuff like that. But one thing I do like about liberal arts education is knowing the professor on a personal level can really help you as far as research, because you can pick your favorite professor or whatever and work with them personally, maybe even on a one-on-one basis on some topic that you look forward to doing, maybe even later on in your career. So I think that is a really helpful point that liberal arts education allows you to do.
And I guess just bouncing back on Justin's, dismissal of my size analogy. I think something that also comes with size is the alumni base, and whether or not you appreciate it or not. I think something really has to do with the fact that because such a low number of people share that college cultural identity with you, I think there's more of an inclination for people that have graduated and moved on to the real world to pull you up into their world because they feel a stronger connection. Whereas I think at bigger schools, of course, that identity still exists, and I would say that with sports teams being more prominent, I think the fan base maybe stronger, but at the same time, I think because there's thousands of others that have that same degree, I think the value and the meaning tied with that is less prominent, and it's more of I'm going to come in here, get what I want, and leave. Whereas I think, kind of tying back to a recent read that I've been doing called Hooked, I think there's really an investment portion along with a liberal arts education or just small schools in general, where alumni don't necessarily ever leave the school. They're always tied back in. They're encouraged to come back to alumni events, donate through different different means and mediums, and the school really does a good job in kind of tying them back together so that current students and graduated students can benefit from that system as a whole. And I think that's not really existent or as prominent in bigger schools compared to small liberal arts schools.
And going off that, I think one thing that makes small class sizes good and bad is because it's so discussion based, it requires a lot from every student. So I think my class experiences have varied because of those classroom discussions, where I've had classes where I'm with very smart, intelligent people, and I've had great discussions. And I've also been in classes where not that many people participate, and also their participation isn't as good as it could be. And I think that has also like made my experience a little worse sometimes. But I think because it requires so much out of students, I think I appreciate that more.
Definitely. I mean, I know personally, like getting to know each and every one of my professors and attending their office hours has been a huge help. If you're struggling on homework, for instance, you can go to their office hours. They'll help you through it. Like, if you're at a big school, you might be dealing with multiple TAs. Like, it just makes it extremely hard. And learning the material, especially if you're in these like upper level classes, like getting help personally from a teacher is just incredible.
I guess I'm sorry to keep bringing size, and I guess size does matter. I think something else that I have really personally been finding interesting lately is kind of your exposure to the various types of friends that you can have in a college experience at a liberal arts education. I think that obviously a huge part of the college life is your social aspects. And I think a lot of times with bigger schools, you're limited to your major friends, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You definitely share interests. You're studying the same thing. And because of the way the school is structured, you kind of resort to taking the same classes with the same people. And you sometimes even live in the same quarters because a lot of schools, even the dorms are divided upon what majors you are. But with liberal arts education, one, you have fundamental like graduation requirements that require you to take a wide array of classes so that you can explore and really make use of what liberal arts stands for. And I think those really serve as catalysts or meeting grounds for different students of different backgrounds to come together. And you might not have the same academic interests, but you can, you have a same or similar like sports interests, maybe a team that you follow together, a celebrity you like together, a music artist. And I think without having those venues for exposures, those kind of friendships won't happen. And I think that's really important in developing conversations, much like this podcast, where you have people from different fields come together and have conversations. Whereas I think in bigger schools, you have very limited conversations within a specific field because you don't have those venues for meetings or occurrences of that nature.
And also going off that, because of that, I think it encourages more diversity of thought. I think it encourages people from all different backgrounds, and especially if you're in a class with a lot of discussions, you're definitely you're challenged with more ideas rather than the lecturer just giving you what they think. And obviously you would disagree, or you could disagree with the lecturer sometimes, but I think just having more numbers, having more people participating in the classroom discussion encourages you to think about things that you've never thought before. And I think, and also, but for most liberal arts colleges or universities, they require you to take classes that you wouldn't have otherwise. And I think it's very unlikely for a 18, 19-year-old first year in college to know what they want to do the rest of their lives. And I think it's important to face things that you aren't comfortable with. And like I think it's very cliche for a lot of liberal arts schools to say, but like it's even for me, like I came here trying to be a doctor, like being a pre-med, and trying to go to med school. And I think after a few years, like I think I've figured out that those aren't necessarily my interests, and I don't really want to pursue that. And I think that happens very often here, and I think that's one of the major perks of going to a liberal arts school.
Yeah, I mean, when reading about a liberal arts education, you'll find that one of the cons that is presented a lot is how spread out your classes are. So you're not focused on one thing, which a lot of people don't really like because they say that you're kind of like, I don't know, like spreading your knowledge rather than like being specialized, which is what like your career, your people who hire you are going to look for. Which is why I think a lot of people in liberal arts education look to go to a higher education level after, like not straight into the workforce. At least with me as an engineering major at a liberal arts school, I'm definitely going to look to go to graduate school afterwards so that I can get my master's, and that will be where my specialization will come from. Whereas my undergrad, I'm taking classes in history, art, theater, whatnot, anything outside of my major, which I think is really helpful because I'll be able to orally present, I'll be able to write well, as Justin was talking about earlier. I think those soft skills that employers like to find are really developed in my undergrad because I'm in a liberal arts college.
I think this is probably a good time to segue kind of a bit more personally. I think we've been talking a lot about broad liberal arts benefits, and I think us three kind of being from different fields, we could really speak to, or at least in our perspective, how the liberal arts university has benefited, if not benefited, or worsened our situation / perspective for the future. So maybe we'll go right back to Tyler. So Tyler's in engineering, more specifically chemical engineering, and I think a lot of difficulty comes with that, especially our university, for one, is not accredited, and kind of grad school is basically required at this point. So I think Tyler could just speak to our listeners a bit about like maybe the struggles that you face / maybe you feel more confident because you have this type of education / do you feel like if you knew you were going to do this for a fact, you would have went to a bigger school, or just speak about your experience as a chemical engineering student at a liberal arts university.
Yeah, so I mean, first, when I was looking here, obviously it's a great school, but it is not accredited. For those of you who don't know what accredited means, there's basically an association that sets standards for engineering programs throughout the United States, including like what classes they have to offer, and like types of research that they have to conduct for them to become accredited. Being accredited, a lot of people have different opinions on it. Me personally, not being in an accredited program, I don't think is really hurting me. Like Brian said, almost it does make graduate school like required technically, but I think a lot of people nowadays are going to graduate school anyways, especially in STEM fields. So making that an issue is not really that big of a deal. And then you're going to get that engineering degree from your master's program anyways, so I don't think having an accredited undergrad program is doing you that much good because you're going to get the basics classes that you need. You're still going to take all the main level courses that are offered at other universities. You may not get as specific, but you're still going to get that base knowledge that you need to do well in those master's programs. So I think being accredited is a small benefit, I guess you could say, but if you're going to a master's program anyways, there's really no need for it.
At least for me, I mean, this might sound very idealistic, but like, for me, I don't think necessarily school should be like I don't necessarily see school like education as necessarily an investment. I think we also have to look at the non-tangible like factors we gain from education, and I think a lot of people like with their biggest complaints about liberal arts education is that because of its lack of like professionalization, like they say people don't tend to do well in like their careers, but for me, I think being like, as I said earlier, being able to think and like being part of like a person in the world, I think being able to read, being able to think, being able to write, I think is one of the most fundamental like aspect of being a person, and I think liberal arts definitely makes that stronger, and I mean that's why I've enjoyed going to a liberal arts school the most.
I guess to kind of juxtapose what Justin and Tyler just said, I would almost argue that the biggest concern a lot of times, almost not even concern, as to Justin's point, with liberal arts education is people are scared that they're not going to be as specialized for their field to go in, especially for non-humanities fields where having that objective skill is very important. Engineers, computer engineers, businessmen, whatnot. But I think the world is really going towards a direction where you have to be a jack of all trades. You just can't be a systematic robot that just outputs information and results. And maybe that's not so true about research assistants or computer engineers that kids sit at a desk and really crank out numbers, and all props to them. I think they're doing great work and they're very required parts of society. But I think a lot of management level people that are really good at that field, but also can articulate what they're doing, are people can really have that social aspect, really benefit from having that liberal arts education, as Justin mentioned, because you're getting these intangible assets that might not necessarily align with what you value as a specialized education that may come with state school majors that just have what your career is going to be in your title, like animal therapy or whatever it may be. But I think people that go through a liberal arts education, not only can they say, hey, I have the technical skills, I have the potential to do those things, I can study on my own, but at the same time, I've been trained to read, write. I've had to do public presentations in classroom sizes of 20 to 30. I've had level-headed one-to-one interaction with faculty. I've held all these leadership opportunities and positions because my school was so small. I don't think many students at bigger schools can say that because their schools are so vast, they're so specified, they're tested more or less on whether or not they can perform that skill and that skill alone. But at a liberal arts university, you're constantly challenged to do things that you're not used to, that you're uncomfortable doing. And I think the reality of the corporate world and the quote unquote real world is that you're going to be faced with human interactions, and even though the world's becoming more technological, I think at the end of the day, you need to learn how to interact with your coworkers properly. And I think that really comes from what I've mentioned before, where you are constantly interacting with people that aren't like you, have different thoughts, are studying something different. And having that knowledge, I think, is really going to help you in having that team dynamic wherever you go, whatever field you jump into, regardless of whether it be engineering, law, or business. And I'm sure others would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading something earlier this week that relates directly to that. It was about how students at liberal arts universities can adapt more easily outside, like in the workforce, when they're faced with tasks that are a bit outside of their realm because of the classes that they take outside of their major. They're ready to, like, they won't become stagnant in their job. Like, if something changes to where, say, engineers are no longer needed anymore, for instance, like, they have those other talents to fall back on, kind of.
And also, like, I think just looking at graduation people, looking at people that have just graduated, I think our university, I think, has almost close to 100% you're either employed or you go to grad school. And I think, I mean, that comes with going to a good liberal arts college, but, like, I do think most people that do graduate from liberal arts are employed, and it's not as if people say, like, if you major in humanities, you're not going to get a job, but I don't think that's necessarily true.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, like, a huge con that, like, one of the top cons you'll see about liberal arts education is the cost. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that for a second.
So like monetary costs?
Right.
Sure.
So, like, the financial burden of attending a liberal arts college. Like, how has that impacted people with choosing where they go? Or, like, has it been a factor at all?
Sure. Well, I'm just doing it.
I was going to say, like, most colleges are very expensive, and I think, like, even state schools, like, I mean, I would say, like, it's not necessarily just liberal arts schools that are costly. I think you could argue that almost every single private school is close to the same. And I think even most like state universities out of state are all like getting close to $60,000. And I mean, sure, it's a big cost burden, but like I think compared like if you compare that to like a state school, I mean, I don't have any stats on this, but I would argue that like they probably invest in students significantly more per student than rather than like a state university. So I think it's definitely worth it.
I think, and maybe this is thinking way too hypothetically, but as to Justin's point, private schools in general are more expensive. But at the same time, I think because there's more opportunities compared to the number of students, I think a lot of students benefit from taking on those opportunities, I guess specifically financial opportunities. For example, Tyler and I are both residential advisors, and I think it would be fair to argue that maybe at a bigger school it'd be a lot harder to get those positions because there's more people trying for them. There's maybe there's more money, but there's also more people to spread that out. A lot of small schools have huge endowments that are used well in supporting people financially. So I think it all goes back to size again, where and it also has to do with the administration's philosophy and how they think. But I think all in all, I think it benefits students, if anything, where because there's a set amount of money, but limited and less people, I think more people end up benefiting at smaller schools. And even aside from, let's say, the tuition and let's say you pay everything, I think the value of the degree and value of having graduated from a smaller school, and hopefully we don't gain haters from bigger schools from this statement, but I think that value is greater and than the value that comes from a bigger school, in my personal opinion, because as I said before, less people have it, and I think it's more priceless than the value that comes with it having from a bigger school. Having said that, I think one thing that we struggle with for liberal arts is probably name value. A lot of liberal arts schools aren't as known, and it largely depends on that alumni base to pull you up, and you often have to explain, hey, like, we go to this school, it's a good school, we promise. Whereas if you go to a big school, you don't have to, But I think Justin has a counter argument here.
Wait. Well, okay, so for me, I mean, I don't know if that necessarily applies here, just because, like, when we talk about liberals, like when we talk about diplomas and like if whether the university is worth attending or not, especially an investment, especially through like a lens of like return on investment, that all depends on what school you go to. Obviously, if you go to a better state school versus a really bad liberal arts school, I would assume the return on investment is significantly higher on the state school versus liberal arts. But my focus, I think, at least for me, I think it's the things you learn from a liberal arts education, not necessarily like the cost. I think it just depends on where you go, and that obviously we can't really say much about. Like, there are good liberal arts schools, there are bad liberal arts schools, there are good state schools, there are good big public schools, and there are really bad public schools. So I think it just depends.
That's true.
Yeah, another point I wanted to bring up. I'm not really sure like how this relates to or compares to state schools and other non-liberal arts colleges, but at least for me, like my experience, I'm an athlete. I play soccer at a liberal arts university, and personally, like if I wasn't at a liberal arts university, I would not be playing soccer. Well, I shouldn't say if I wasn't at a liberal arts university, but if I wasn't at such a small school and if I was at a bigger state school where I was getting a great engineering education but like I wouldn't be playing soccer. So when coming here, like I guess what I'm trying to say is you're open to more opportunity. So if I want to join another club or play on the soccer team or even studying abroad, for instance, like I don't think I would be able to study abroad if I was at another university or a bigger university studying engineering. Like I just wouldn't have the time. There's not many engineering classes that you can take abroad, and if you're at a bigger school, you're not taking as many classes outside of your major. So, and I'm looking to go abroad this spring term, like studying a history class in Scotland. Like that opportunity is just so rare to me, and I like thank the liberal arts education for that.
So like there's no like leisure even to do that. Like
exactly.
That's basically
exactly.
I mean, like for me, I guess I I went to a private school for high school, and most of my classes were like 8 to 10. And our first school policy for our English department, we were required to write a paper every Monday, and I guess it was from that I have this idealized view of liberal arts education, but I mean, I returned to my high school on Friday, and like the first thing my English teacher said was, if I was still taking writing classes to keep my writing up, and I said I was, and I think it is like you can't. I don't know where this like, I just think it's like priceless like aspect of education that like I think we're in this world where like I think everything is becoming monetized, where like everything is viewed as like a return on investment.
Sure.
But I personally think we should go away from that, and I think liberal arts education is not only like it is a good return on investment, but I also think it promotes like intangible goods that like intangible factors that I think is so important in life.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I can't argue against it. I think since I've been speaking so much about the positives of liberal arts, I think the skeptical view that comes with liberal arts, and I think all of us are kind of talking in a rather like privileged standpoint where we kind of figured ourselves out and we know what we're doing and how we're using the liberal arts for it. But I think a lot of people aren't in the position where they can consider education not an investment. Like they need to use it as an investment. And not to go hard on Justin's point, I think obviously education is very valuable at any stage, and I think and that's something that's untradeable, and that throughout history people have valued that. But at the same time, I think some people really need to go to college to like get that specialization, get out, support their family. So I think in that manner, people may be fearful and less a bit reluctant to tackle a liberal arts education because it might not give them, or it probably won't give them that immediate specialization they require. However, I think something has to be said about the fact that even those individuals that require that may come in here, find something that they might not have had found if they went to a bigger school and kind of went in that specialization right away. Because a lot of schools, big schools, you choose your major even before going to the school. And they might be stuck doing that just because of financial reasons or whatnot. But if you have a scholarship, great opportunity, come to liberal arts education, and you thought you were going to be a engineer, but then you come here and you're like, well, like I would make a great English professor. Then you do that, and then you get a smacking great job out of grad school through liberal arts education. You would have never had that opportunity at a grad school or at a big school. So I think both sides are very very valuable in that one side there's a rather quote unquote guarantee that whatever you study at a undergrad is going to get you a job and get you stable, whatnot. On the other hand, you're going to be able to not only equip yourself with the reading, writing, and intangible abilities, but also have even the chance of further exploring the job field. Because like, what do you know out of high school? I mean, I don't think I still don't. I don't entirely know what I want to do. I don't think anyone does. And I think that's something to highlight maybe from us being in our very fortunate spot. Something that, okay, so actually, this has been back in my mind. Justin kind of highlighted this a bit. I think another aspect of liberal arts, and I think it'd be interesting to see Tyler versus Justin because Tyler was very set on from the beginning. He's been doing that and he's going to do great. Whereas Justin came in with something, changed it, still doing great. So I'm wondering if it being liberal arts and one of the really like liberal arts thing is being able to like change your major at any time or like go into one field and go to another. Like, is that necessarily a good thing? Like I actually question that a lot lately. Like I guess I'm kind of going back on what I said just now, but is it good to really explore? Are we just at a phase where we think that changing is cool and like we need to diversify our options? Or is kind of investing and putting all your eggs in one basket something that you should be doing, and does that in the end produce better results? Like what are y'all's thoughts on that?
I mean, I think having those fundamental distribution requirements, as you said earlier, like when you come into the school, you have those lists of classes, like, or at least the subjects that you need to knock out. So you taking those and experiencing different things allows you to like make that decision on what you eventually want to do with your life. For me, I came in knowing that I wanted to study chemical engineering. Especially in any STEM field, really, you need those base classes at the beginning of the year. So like physics 1 and 2, calc 1 and 2, like you have to take those, so you sign up for those right away. But yeah, I mean, I think being at a liberal arts university has helped me a lot. For instance, the alumni that we have and the professors and the connection that they have between each other. I can go to my engineering professor, talk to him about his past experiences, people he knows. He can connect me with other people, allow me to talk to different people and see what they do around the world, and then I can pick and choose who I think I would like to research with or who I think I would like to work with, and that in itself allows me to experience different things and help me kind of like draw out my path for the future and what I want to do with my life.
I mean, also going off of what Brian said, I don't see why having an option to change your plans is it could be a possible. I don't understand how it could be a bad thing, because just having the option to change is another option you could do. Like Tyler, who knew what he wanted to do and is doing what he wants to do and hasn't changed. Like, you could always do that. Like, no one is taking that option away from you, but just having another option, I don't think could possibly be a bad thing. And I guess for me, I think I'm very different from Tyler and Brian in that, like, I put less emphasis on the results. I mean, I think that's just a personality thing, and I think that's why at least for me, like, the most of the things I've talked about has been like I feel like being at a liberal arts school, I think, has made me enjoy learning more. Like, has made me read about things, like, just for fun that, like, I wouldn't have otherwise. And I think that's as I said earlier, that's like my favorite aspect of liberal arts education.
Sure. Well, I guess the reason why I posed the question, and not to sound like an arrogant person, but I think I'm rather set. I have a summer internship. I know what I'm doing. But there are times I think I wish that there weren't so many things going on and there weren't so many things to focus on. Because it's a liberal arts, you see people around you doing all these things, which are great. But I think there are times where I wish I was just specified doing one thing without having the need to do other things.
What do you mean?
There's definitely a culture at liberal arts universities where everyone's involved in everything and they're involved in various things, and it's the cool thing to do, to explore and be a chemical engineer, but take sociology, theater, history. Like that's the in thing to do, which is great. And at the end of the day, I think in 2017, having a diverse array of thought is the cool thing to do. But I think, especially for specialized major people like engineers, computer scientists, STEM majors of sorts, and even history majors, whatnot, any academic field, I think, maybe I'm wrong to say this, but there are times where you just wish that's the only thing you did.
I mean, that's
like.
That's
there's no way that everyone wants to be constantly diverse. Like,
yeah, that's
just not.
Yes, I completely agree with you, and I think to answer that question, I think it just depends on, like, how much the school puts emphasis on its, like, requirements. Like, I mean, obviously, like, a school could put 2 courses as, like, you have to take 2 courses outside your major to, like, get the degree, or, like, they could put 15. I think that just depends on, like, where the school thinks it's a nice balance. I mean, for me, I've been taking a lot of philosophy classes that I don't know if I'm going to major in or... Like, I've taken a lot of history and philosophy classes that I don't know if I'm going to major in or not, but I just do it because I think it's interesting. And I personally don't think there are any people that take classes because it's the in thing to do. I think people do it because they genuinely enjoy it, or people that, like, do it because they have to take the requirements out of the way. But at least I don't know anyone that, like, takes a class in addition to the requirements because it's, like, what other people do.
Yeah, I know for me, when I came in and saw that I had to take a first-year writing seminar, I was like, man, like, I hate writing. Why would I ever take this class? But I mean, looking back on it now, I did become a better writer because of that. And I think, I mean, having the ability when you graduate and are in the workforce to have intellectual conversations outside of what you're working on is just awesome. Like it's gonna benefit you so much with networking and meeting new people. Like you may like see opportunities come your way that will not before, because you'll connect with someone on a topic that they never would have even thought that you would know something about. So I think like taking these different classes and just being open to everything will help you a lot in the future.
I would okay. So, for example, in our university, there's a lot of general electives, including a PE class, including you have to take some form of like humanities, arts. Like, yes, I think when are you ever gonna get the chance to take those classes? There's often aha moments where you take that class and you're like, no, I don't want to be a computer scientist. I want to be a sociology major. Yes, those happen, but I think a lot of times those are very like unique. Not to throw my school under the bus, but unique cases that admissions people use to lure people in, because that sounds romantic. That's a very like Hollywood type, like you're sitting in a class with a romanticized professor who like knock you in the head, and you have a Dead Poet Society moment where you're like, whoa, like I don't want to dedicate my life to a STEM major. I want to read books for a living. That's great, but I think nothing. I'm wondering. I'm posing whether or not this confusion leads to just a phase of confusion where you could have just used that time on something more tangible. And I know that Justin's stance is that education is not something that should be tangible, which I agree with. But in a bigger picture, maybe it's because we're in our 20s at a time where we're almost so societally programmed to be this exploration age, when in reality we could be investing all that time, energy, and brain power into something that, one, we're good at, and in return probably like doing. Like maybe this culture almost forces you to think that exploring is the cool and hip thing to do.
But like I think it's just as unique to know exactly what you want to do when you get to a school when you're 18. I think it's like, if not more unique. I think it's like, I mean, for practical reasons, I think a lot of people choose what they want to do for either monetary or like for the sense of security than like what they actually want to do. And I think college, this is a cliche, but I think like the exploration part, I don't think it's necessarily like a societal concept that like
for example, I think this is a very valid tangible example. So as I mentioned before, Justin went from pre-med to pre-law. Was your transition over class, like were you sitting in class that's somehow related to law, or even better, were you sitting in a pre-med class that you were just like, this is not for me, I'm gonna, like what prompted you to make that change? And was that, I'm not necessarily talking about your leisure, like you were like, oh, like it's not gonna hurt me if I change because I'm a liberal arts. I'm talking like, did the liberal arts education lead you that way? Because I would argue it didn't.
But then I don't think I would have been able to change if I wasn't.
Right. But that's taking the ability aside.
Okay.
The thought process, was it, or your inclination to do so, was that provoked through having a wide array of thought?
Well, for me, like coming in, like even like I took a philosophy of law class sophomore year, and I think I really for me, I don't enjoy change that much. So I knew I was personally interested in like history, philosophy classes, and I've been taking that all throughout college, and like I've been doing I knew that I wasn't gonna I knew I wasn't just gonna solely major in like biochemistry major, which I declared sophomore year. I knew I was gonna do something else as well because when I was in those science classes, I would felt like I was drudging through this. I didn't necessarily enjoy it, and I looked at it merely as like an end, merely as a means. Like my goal was to go to med school, and I was like, I have to take these classes that I don't really want to.
Sure.
But then because I want to go to med school, that like I didn't even know what med school was in high school, but like that's what I wanted to do because like people want to be doctors, and like having I don't think I had like an aha moment, but like I will always, like I leveraged my classes so that I could take classes I want to take, but also maintain the pre-med stuff. But then at some point I was just like, I don't think it's worth it. And I think there are other fields that like I would enjoy, if not probably more, and do just as well. So that, I mean, I don't think I had like a professor who was like, oh, this person changed my life. But like being able to take those, being able to do classes that I was interested in personally, even though I didn't think it was necessarily practical, I think encouraged me to do
you. Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think just wrapping things up, if we each went through and said like what we appreciate about liberal arts education and maybe things we don't like about liberal arts education, I can start it off. I just think a liberal arts university gives you that strong base of knowledge, maybe even little knowledge in each subject, and then a strong basic knowledge in your major. It gives you the opportunity to succeed, to do what you want in life, to go to the future and know that you have a solid education and you can choose many different paths. And I mean, just having that opportunity is amazing.
I think I'm just gonna do one each. I think I've been way too positive about my experience so far. I'll start with a negative, and something that I haven't mentioned before. I think one thing socially, I think we focus very academically. It's kind of this idea of like, if you don't really want to stand out during college, I don't know why that would be the case, but I could see it being a case where you kind of just want to come, kind of like stay hidden, do your work, not get distracted, get out. Like that's almost undoable at a liberal arts university, in my opinion. I think like sure, like you can just go to class, quickly run to your dorm and hide, but like there's RAs who are constantly trying to get you to come do like whole programming. There's emails being sent out by deans, faculty, like making sure you're in class, wondering why you're not in class, wondering why you've been frowning during class. Like that's happened before, where a professor emailed me asking like if things were okay, and I was just having a not so great day. So I think I would almost argue, and of course, I think that being social is better, and I think people want friends, but I think if you just want to maybe have a part-time job during that time, you have things to do, you want to have an internship, like school is just a enzyme that you use to get somewhere, and it's not something that you want to be tied down to socially or even with faculty to that level. I don't think a liberal arts education is for you, personally. And I guess to turn that around, I think the positive is that if you need that personal care, you enjoy and you're easily motivated by the fact that people are counting on you personally, because that's something that you get every day. You get friends that are so happy for you when you have opportunities coming your way, that are supporting you when you don't have things going your way.
That tight-knit community.
That tight-knit community, and with faculty that graduate from amazing universities, are PhD level geniuses, but yet they're willing to have that 30-minute conversation with you where you feel like you're the center of the earth when you are technically nothing at this point. You know everyone from the cafeteria lady to the president by name. Like, that's not even available at my high school, but we're talking about a college level education that provides that. And I think that's something beyond value, that intangible, to use Justin's words, that I think can't be beatable. And I would look back to this day and age and think I basically went to Hogwarts. Like, this is unreal. And I see Justin squirming over there in order to keep his feelings down. But let's hear it.
I mean, for me, I think I'm pretty introverted, and I don't think I've had an experience where like I've like a dean or a teacher or a professor like has made me do something I don't think I was socially pressured into. But that being said, I genuinely think if you want to stay hidden, you can, and anywhere. Like, it's like
You definitely have in the bathroom.
Okay, I don't think they go out of your way. I don't think they socially pressure into doing things you don't want to do. But that being said, I think it encourages people to break out of their bubble, which I think is very, very beneficial. For me, I think it might be a unique case just for me, but I think liberal arts education, I think, in college, and I think I had a lot of liberal arts education in my high school because most of my high school teachers went to liberal arts universities. I think it instilled like a passion for learning, and I think, I mean, that sounds very cliche and that sounds very idealistic, but I think I used to not like reading. I used to not like having these conversations because I thought it was inefficient, ineffective, and doesn't really do anything. But I think having experienced liberal arts education for like 6 years by now, I think having these conversations, I think, is what I enjoy about life, and like I think it's those intangible things that like I think is what I enjoy doing the most.
I agree with both of you. Unfortunately, that's all we can cover today. Let us know what you think about liberal arts education by commenting below or emailing us at liberalarts19@gmail.com. Subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. Thanks for listening.